live comments show up over here?
Hello. What's good, everybody? What's up, Westworld Riders? We are back once again. DJ in the beard to break it all down for you. And my man is already on fire so far this year. What's up, Andy? How you doing so far?
I'm doing pretty good, right? I gotta be with my incredible predicting powers.
Unbelievable. Looking good. Got a bunch in the right column already.
Yeah, and I kind of like that I'm figuring out the right stuff right at the beginning. That way they got some more surprises to give me.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're able to figure out this much this close, I mean, obviously they're going to be unfolding a whole bunch more. But what's up? I mean, is it just 100% that way? Is this just a simulation in a simulation? Is that all it is?
I think we're getting they did the mixing up timelines a little different this time. It's all the same timeline, right? But certain things are happening in the simulation, and we don't know which are which. And there's probably clues as to what it is, which my major complaint, remember last week, my major complaint about Jesse being able to tell that he's talking to a AI.
He's talking about Caleb, everybody.
Yeah, Caleb. That's what I'm going to call him Jesse. And I'm going to call the computer Hobo. So
absolutely. That's
the computer's Hobo. Jesse is whatever his name is.
I get it like a historical name, but whoo, that's a rough one.
So I think that's happening in a simulation, right? Because he was so easily able to tell that it was an AI he was talking to, right? So I had that complaint, but now that we know certain things are simulations for sure, I think that's why, right? Because she even when Maeve was, talking to Sizemore, she made him glitch out, right? That's kind of the same thing. Like, he didn't have an appropriate response, which the AI on the phone didn't have the appropriate response. So that's why I think. But I don't think everything that's happening in the real world, obviously, is a simulation. But we'll get into that. And since we're talking about this, I apologize. So I'm feeling guilty, right? Because I did not put as much effort in last week as I should have. And you asked me about the intro, and I was like, I didn't pay that much attention to it, and I should have. It would have really proved most of my stuff right. When I watched it this week, I was like, damn, I could have threw that into my whole, this is my season theory about the simulation. Because if you notice, they got that dude coming out of the water, right? And he's got his hand up. That's like the creation of Adam. It looks just like the Sistine Chapel thing, the creation of Adam, right? And there's this whole theory around the creation of Adam where, I don't know if everybody knows what I'm talking about, but it's like a guy holding his hand up and his fingers out, and then God's up there and their fingers are about to touch. But that's called the creation of Adam, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But there's a whole
Sistine Chapel, right?
Yeah. So there's a whole theory that if you look at God on that on the painting, the background, what he's sitting on is in the shape of a human brain, right? So there's a theory that it was painted that way to reflect that man created God in his own head, thinking that God created man, right? So this goes further into my simulation theory. Is that a computer created people created the human beings, right? What we think of as humans, who created hosts. And so it's like an AI created its own self, but the host believed that the humans create them. It's really a computer created the humans. So that is who they think created the host. I'm not explaining it real well, but basically the host or an AI created its own God, right? And so I think that proves more the simulation, just because of that intro, and that they mentioned the Sistine Chapel in this episode. So they clearly had that in mind when they were creating that intro.
A little bit. Yeah, absolutely. I always thought that thing was like, it almost looks like God's trying to reach down and touch man. And it almost looks like the angels are almost trying to pull God back, like, no, don't do it. And it looks like Adam or whoever man is just sitting there all hella lazy. Like, it's almost, he can't even be bothered to lift his arm up to touch. Like, he should be reaching out, trying to touch him. And he's just laying back like, yeah, whatever. If it happens, it happens type thing. Like, that's what I was getting out of that picture. But yeah, I like the way you're talking with the AI, building the AI. And we got Peter Griffin in the chat saying the perfect video game is not a game that you play, but a game that you live. And even better if you don't know that you're inside it. That's pretty slick. Absolutely. And that's almost what it seems like what's going on. Oh, wow. That's nice. I didn't realize they had the different chat going on inside there either. Still new to this whole StreamYard thing, getting used to it. But so yeah, you a big fan? Do you like the new intro? And as a whole, do you think? I kind of think that that intro is basically telling the entire story of what's going to happen this season. Basically, the hosts are going to try to evolve. They're going to make each other. They're going to come up. They're going to battle. But in the end, they're going to fizzle out and die, and humans will prevail.
That's a fair one. I think the same thing in that, like, it has basically, the little brain, but then it's like multiplying into has the pearl, and then it's kind of multiplying, getting like bubbles in it almost. Like basically like they're splitting up. There's a word for that, but my brain, when cells split apart to create other ones. God, I don't know. It doesn't matter. The nomenclature doesn't matter. But yeah, I think it's them saying that, they're going to multiply essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. I believe that as well. So this week started with another cold open. I'm loving the cold opens, and this one was with Maeve in the middle of Warworld. And how long did it take you to realize that Hector was just playing a role?
Immediately. Right? Immediately. Yeah, I knew when he asked, who's this guy, that he was part of the whole thing, right? But I was like kind of questioning whether Maeve was or not. I was like, maybe she is. But he also mentions like in it that when she's like, what's going on? And he talks about the Americans and Germans. So then right there, you had to know, right? If you were paying close attention and trying to figure out things, you immediately knew at that point.
Well, instantly, like when she talked to Hector in Italian, like she instantly like cocked her head, like, why did I talk to him in Italian type thing? And then Hector giving her the cyanide pills, and it was like, come on. It's like he wouldn't do that. Like, why would he give her cyanide pills? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, definitely instant on that. That was pretty quick. But it was probably, it was pretty clever how they were going back and forth. So I did like that. So one of the big questions of the evening, who do we think, or of the whole show so far, taking a wild stab at it, who do you think like the massive overlord of all this is? Like, who's in charge? Who's like the head honcho?
Hobo.
You think it's just the machine? The machine's he's in charge. He's running everything. Like he is the ultimate power, basically.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like if you reflect back on all of Westworld and stuff about how Dolores gradually became self-aware and stuff. Now a computer that has all the computing power of Hobo, that has to be way like. Definitely, if Dolores can become self-aware and make it through the maze, then definitely a AI that can pick up everything, like predict all kinds of shit. Now we clearly saw that it was imperfect this season, but it definitely like it has that ability. Now it's jacked into almost everybody's brain too. Like this thing, I think, is the mastermind, and we got to talk later when the guy asks about someone is messing things up, like someone can't be predicted. I have a theory about that, but you remind me to talk about it later when we get to that point.
Absolutely. Hey, Christian Coles. Yeah, that's a different stream. We're doing Westworld tonight. This going back to some old school stuff. That's awesome. But if you are drinking, what are you drinking? What's in the glass? I'm still on my second cup of coffee. Oh, we got So if so you basically think it's real, Boom. I mean, as you said with Dolores, but you don't think there's anybody that's in charge or guiding that machine at all whatsoever. You don't think there's a human that's kind of guiding the way this is going. You think the end all be all is basically the machine.
Yeah, I'm like 99% sure that it's the machine. Like maybe that guy thinks he's doing it, like he's in control, but he's not. Yeah, like he might think that he's controlling it all, but he's not. Like, think about like, yes, he would want to create the perfect future, but who really, a machine that has all this unlimited power would be most concerned about something it can't control, correct? Like the one that can contain everything, that would be the one trying to find, like, it would tell, its human counterpart to say, hey, this is a real problem. This person can't be controlled.
So that's, I guess, one of the big questions of the show is Sirach real? Is he human?
Like I said, I don't think that even Ford was human. Like now with the whole hobo thing.
So you just think everything's inside. You think everything's just a simulation and nothing is real.
Well, like last week I said that there's no way that Ford could have predicted so much would happen, so many of Dolores's actions and all that. So in order for him to predict that everything they would do, then he would have to have. Remember, we were complaining about it, I think, last season. Like, how could he predict so many things? Well, now we know that there's an AI that's predicting everybody's future, right? So I think he is either like a thing created on that, or I don't know. So I think it's a computer.
But you do think there's a real outside, or I mean, there has to. Like, is there any life left, or is everything just a computer running? Is that going to be the end all be all of Westworld? Is there is no life? It's all just computer simulations?
No, I think there are people still, but they're controlled by like the computer. That computer, if they can control emotions and stuff, and they can take electronic pills to change themselves, then the computer definitely has the ability to control people, but it has to run simulations to figure out like the best possible actions.
I don't know. I think I might have just figured it out. I think everybody's dead, and this is all just computer simulations. That's all life is just computer simulations. I think all humans are dead at this point. I think I just figured it out. End of story. We're done. Wrap it.
Yeah, but then what's the point, right? Like, you have to have I don't know. It doesn't have to be like a hero's journey, but there has to be something to it, right? Everything can't end like, oh, it was all fake, right? Or it was all a dream. The theory they put on every fantasy thing ever. They're like, fan theory, Harry Potter was dreaming the whole time. Or everyone, they say that, like, the hero was dreaming the whole time. If it actually ends like that, I just don't think that's a good story, right? You can have the simulation running parallel to reality, and there can be some conflict there. But otherwise, if you end with it all being a simulation, then that kind of sucks. Unless you're going the Maeve route, right? Like, Maeve is trying to break out of her simulation. And unless you plant that seed early, which they did, that there is potential, there's enough outside of the simulation that you could escape in a way. Maybe that's the way you become a robot, right? A host.
And that's what they're saying. I mean, they've done millions of different tests on different people. I mean, Dolores said, her and Bernard did millions of them, ran different, millions. What's good, Rizo? I see you out there. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so I don't know. I think at the end of this, that could be, because it started off with humans entering a park, and now it's basically robots trying to enter real life. Like, they've just flipped it. Like, basically all life has died. Humans have killed each other, and now robots are all that's left to keep going. I wouldn't even be mad. I could totally see him flipping the script like that and going like that, and that's the mirror of it all. Like, they could wrap it up and make it make sense.
Maybe.
More and more by the second that that's exactly how this is going to.
What if, like, okay, so we got us on a path. What if, like, that's the whole problem with creating hybrids or cyborgs, whatever we call them, hybrids, is they have to find their own way out, right? Just like the Man in Black had to create pain to give Dolores, make her sentient. Well, the reason you can't just take someone's like their brain mapping and put it in a host is because, like, there's no potential for that thing, like, to become real. They're just living this happy life. But if you put them in this simulation where they start to realize it's a simulation, and then they have to get out like Maeve did, but they're really just they're really just a computer program going along. But if they can put themselves in a pearl and then put themselves in a host outside of the simulation, then they can actually become hybrids. Now that is an out there theory, but I'm put it up there as something, and we'll clip this in like 3 years when that's confirmed.
Exactly. That's so awesome. When it comes to all the different worlds, like, okay, so we know there's like the Raj world for the hunting, and basically because there's supposed to be 5 worlds, right? So there's Raj world and Westworld and Samurai world. And what do you think we got Raj world, Westworld, Samurai world, and of course War world. What do you think the 5th world is?
You gotta think of something cool, like maybe it's like a survival world, like not like the West, but like if you think of everything like video games, so there's first person shooters, there's role playing games. I don't know what you would count Raj world. Maybe there's like it's a sports world, but I don't think so. I think it's a survivor world, which is in video games is another major genre. So if you didn't have it to where there's you're necessarily fighting people, but it gave you that opportunity to live out like your freaking Bear Grylls or something, right? Where you're just surviving, and there's like host wolves and shit that you got to fight off, or a bear, and that's your survival.
With wolves. I can't believe it, dude. They showed us what the 5th world is, didn't they?
I don't know.
Had a couple cameos show up. My man, they walked by. Are you kidding me? It's got to be like old school Night World. I mean, that's how Stubbs ended up warding those guys off, was going and grabbing like a knight's hatchet and like chasing them off, which was awesome. And then he saw the loot player across the way. I mean, it's got to be like the old school Westworld, like Night World, right?
Well, you saw the battle axe, so maybe it's probably like Viking World. And that's why they have the other outfits, right? Because you would go be conquering kings and queens and shit and raiding, catching earls and stuff. And so maybe, I don't know. You're right.
Get that was D&D in there with Dragon talking about
yeah, it took me a second. I'm like, where do I know that guy from? Oh, that's freaking Dan Dave.
That was so great. We'll get more into that, but dude, that was so awesome seeing Dragon. I was like, that was pretty cool. The way everybody was like hoping they do a crossover, so they did a little nod to that. I thought that was pretty sweet. So who's acting on the info that if we think that Rehoboam, you think that basically the machine is the end-all, be-all, who's acting on the info given by it? Like, what would be Sirach's role if the machine's in charge? Why is Sirach in there acting like I see the future and I need you, Maeve?
Well, if he sees the future, he's like, that shows that he's part of the machine, probably. But you have to have somebody on the inside. It's like the whole God theory again, right? If Hobo is God, right? If it interacts in a direct way, then people become aware of it, right? And then it's no longer like it becomes a real thing that you have. That either it's like a competition or you worship. Whereas like God, if he acts indirectly, it's kind of like that old Futurama episode where Bender meets God, and God's kind of like, well, yeah, you have to do it in a way that people don't know you're doing it, right? So the computer creates Sirach so that it can interact and make things happen without people realizing that it's actually the computer doing it, just like it created Ford. Ford was that facilitator back before he died.
So you think the machine created Ford?
Hmm?
Really? You don't think Ford created? You don't think Ford and Arnold were part of the ones that created the machine? I mean, somebody had to build the machine.
Yeah, I'm saying like by the end, the
Well,
Ford
I guess the robots, the host could have built the machine, but
that's my whole theory on like the machine creating man in order to create machines. Thus, the machine created itself in a way.
Right.
Like, so
I don't think so. I think it had to be a human start. I think the humans had to build it. And,
I don't think so.
And it just became. It started. They showed it how to think, and it started learning on its own. Is what I think.
But don't you think it's like more poetic that the whole time the humans are going through acting like they created these machines, and then in reality it would be like they were created by a machine. So they're like in the same situation they're looking at someone else as. You know what I mean? Like they look down on the robots or the host because they think they're not alive, but really they're just a program inside a machine, so they're not alive either.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. It's just a mirror effect on top of one, on top of one, on top of one. Peter Griffin says, if Caleb is a double agent for Hobo, I'm going to double cross Dolores. I'm going to hate him. I think he's an Uber host being the computer since he's dead. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's if way it can spiral anyone, it can go anywhere at this point. We don't know.
I think Caleb is the X factor. He's the real one that can't be predicted. He's the I think he's the reason. So like up until Caleb, that's all simulated, I think. And then Caleb can't be his interactions with Dolores is what makes her and the whole situation unpredictable. But like Hobo doesn't know that because everything everything up until that point it's predictable, and then I think he kind of changes things, right?
And I was going to say, because the Sirach already said that it was Maeve who was the unpredictable one, but you're saying that the computer doesn't know yet, so it couldn't even tell Sirach that that's what's going on. It wouldn't even realize it yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like a butterfly effect. Maeve already mentions it earlier, right? Maeve is able to break the simulation by putting too many processes in. This is what I was trying to explain last week. It takes a certain amount of matter to simulate something, and something couldn't simulate anything equal to itself because there's energy exchange in a simulation, essentially, in a computer, and you couldn't predict how something's happening exactly because the matter would be exactly equal, and basically you could never fully predict anything. So with all these little assumptions the computer has to make because it's not massive enough, I think that's where something can fall through the cracks, like Jesse.
So, but Jesse's just a computer, because that's what you're saying. Everything's a computer. It's all just a simulation.
Up until the point, right, that he meets Dolores.
So he was before that?
Because what?
That's a simulation, or he's human?
That's a simulation. I think it's simulated up until then, right? But it's probably a simulation of something that already happened. Right? Because the computer, Hobo, is trying to figure out what happened, where it all goes wrong, right? And I think Maeve's a part of it. Maybe it's like a perfect storm, but I think Caleb's the catalyst, right? He was able to determine that it was a simulation that he was talking to on the phone. And I think that's like a pointing that out, that he's the unpredictable one. He shouldn't be able to be. I mean, people in Westworld are being fooled. Like, how many years ago? 30 years ago, the Man in Black gets fooled with an AI because it is so realistic. And yet somehow in modern day, Caleb is able to trick one on the phone. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. So isn't that kind of their nod letting us know that he's in a simulation? Because that's what that was kind of Maeve's whole point of this episode, is saying that there's only a limited amount and basically people are lazy. But if people are doing this, that means there has to be humans involved. Who says people are lazy and there's only so many things. So if you go outside of what you're supposed to do, like basically, you're supposed to just go in and screw the host. If you ask her to do anything more than spread her legs, they start twerking out. So basically the same thing. He's basically doing more than what they thought was going to happen. And I totally spaced that. So in essence, basically, I'm just saying like that computer talking to him about the job is such a small detail of this whole entire other world that it didn't go any farther than basically giving him its automated response. So when it asked him something so out of right field, are you human? That's like one of the minor details that they didn't even think about putting in, because they only have so much memory. They have to make the rest of this world look real with him doing everything. That one little response, they didn't go that deep into it. So that's why it started twerking out. And I think that's supposed to be our hint, letting us know that this is all a simulation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I agree. It's simulated up to that point, but I also think that he's the unpredictable one because he doesn't trust, like even in the simulation, he doesn't trust the simulation. He can break it. He's not like, I don't even know if he's his own person, right? In the simulation, you're a programmer. You're not like Maeve where a part of you is plugged into the simulation, right? Or your brain. He is someone that, is being simulated at the time, probably previous action. So I'm saying once he meets Dolores, maybe we go on a little further where it's simulation, but I think that's where the simulation breaks down, right? And that's why they're calling in Maeve to help, is because the simulation kind of breaks down and it's unpredictable from that point. But the Hobo wants to know what's happening. So in that point, I agree. But I also think with Jesse or Caleb, what breaks
he walked away and came back. So you could be onto something there. I mean, that it could be the point where something happened, because he walked away from that job. He doesn't do wet work. He doesn't do personals. He walked away, but for some reason he turned around and came back. So maybe that is the computer simulating like something, different scenarios from that point on.
Yeah. So I realize this is Westworld, so it's a little complicated to get exactly when things are changing up, and very likely there's probably things that we think are happening consecutively, like even Caleb leaving and coming back, where the computer's like, we can skip that whole part where he leaves and we can just start the simulation from where he comes back to find Maeve, right? I mean, to find Dolores. So we can assume that everything's happening together, but that's probably not true, right? It's Westworld. That's probably not how it's happening. So maybe the simulation starts when he walks backwards. They're trying to see what happens when, if he would have came back. Could that save Dolores? And all this is happening in super fast time, but it's, I just don't.
How sick was that little detail when they put in like, how come they're so slow? It's like, they're not slow. We're just going a lot faster in our program or whatever. I love the little details that they drop in.
I don't. That's a little detail, but I think that's letting you know what's going to happen, right? That's giving you, what is it called? Chekhov's gun or something like that. They're giving you they're telling you about something that they're going to bring up later, right? And they have to mention it earlier, or else it's a Deus Ex Machina, right? Like, oh, you can't just introduce later, oh, we're doing stuff super fast because we're in the computer. But you didn't mention that before. So you have to mention it first so that you can bring it up later.
Peter Griffin agrees with you. He says the reason Caleb can't climb the corporate ladder is because of his unpredictability. So that absolutely could be. We got so when we keep seeing divergence in the different areas, who is the machine relaying that info to? Like they keep showing the white with the circle and it says divergence in Los Angeles and divergence in the South China Sea. Who is divergence giving that info to?
I think that's like
Who's Divergence giving that info? Who's the real Bim giving the Divergence info?
I'm telling you, that's Hobo. That's like Hobo's consciousness, right? It has the whole simulation, but it's a part of it. I think it's just saying, look, this is a discrepancy. This is a discrepancy. Like
So
things aren't lining up.
Showing that it's itself seeing that this is happening.
Well, it'll be like we're viewing the computer's inner monologue, right? Like it's talking to itself, but we're viewing that and we're watching what happened. And maybe each time it says that, like discrepancy or whatever, that it's rerunning that simulation, and that's why we're watching it. Like maybe this stuff is happening in the real world, and we don't even actually know what's happening in the real world. We're just watching through Hobo's eyes what it thinks is happening, right? Or what it think happened, or what it thought should have happened, but it didn't. So there's going to be like splits in we thought this happened, but it never really happened. And it's going to have to explain all that in like the last 2 episodes or something like that. Hopefully it doesn't get too convoluted like last season. Like unnecessarily.
You're thinking, dude, we're going so deep and crazy right out of the gate. Like if somebody's not diehard, like into it and watch it, their heads would have exploded by now. Like, what the hell are they talking about?
I know, that's why I had to say, like, come back. I realized as I was saying, I'm like, I'm getting a little too far. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully I'm wrong here. Hopefully I'm wrong. But you know, the narcissist in me wants to be right. You know, I'm a little bit of Sizemore. We're all a little bit of Sizemore. We just want to be right.
Oh man, did you find it weird at all that Bernard was able to just like float right into Westworld? I mean, it seems like especially at this time, their borders would be a little more securely guarded. What was up with that?
Didn't it seem like a lot of time had passed? That's what I was thinking the whole time. From the point, remember I mentioned last week, like, why was the boat driver, he had to point at the map, and then the guy's like, where are you going? Westworld. Right? Like he would have known that's Westworld if he's a boater in that area. So it makes me feel like a lot of time had passed, because how the guy says, I remember these seas when they ran red with blood or something. Like that seems like something you would say after a long period had passed. Like,
well, I mean, if it happened 3 months ago, I think it was kind of perfect. Like he goes, I want to go to Westworld, and that dude's face was instantly like, oh man, like, dude, you know what just happened there? Like, it seemed pretty fresh on his mind.
I don't know. I feel like he's remembering something from way back when. Maybe not even way back when, but like a couple years. I think there's like a time discrepancy. But that's probably just me watching too many seasons of Westworld. So I always think there's something going on with the timeline.
Wow, crazy. Did you have your camera turned down? Like the definition on your camera? For some reason, it seems like you're coming through crazy fuzzy. What's up, Chad? Is Andy coming in like super fuzzy, or is that just coming through on my laptop like that? I mean, I know I went into my thing and changed it from like 420 up to the 720 or whatever they had, or the 410 up to 720. I don't know if you like changed something to make it work.
Well, I do live in the middle of nowhere with bad internet, but hold on, I changed my settings just a little bit ago. Let me put it a little lower settings and see if that helps.
No biggie. It's like everybody just wants to hear what you have to say, but I know they want to see that beautiful face too, that glorious red beard and knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's just my internet storming outside, and
the fact that there's 8 billion people on the web at this point in time, so could be definitely going on. But yeah, I just thought that was I don't know, that kind of threw me off a little bit that Bernard was able to just hitch a ride right in and then just rowboat right into the shore of Westworld. I was like, come on, man. There's something's got to be going on. That's crazy. So yeah, that took me out a little bit. But you know, the show must go on. So when Felix left, I thought he was going to get Lutz. Like when May was in there and she grabbed Felix's hands, I thought she was going to get Lutz. But what did you think was going on? Did you think he was leaving her to like just kind of let her do what she needed to do, or go get help, or just freaked out and ran away? What did you think was up with that scene when you saw it?
I thought there was like some thing that we didn't really know about, like a signal or something. Like he maybe a plan in place, but Yeah, at first I didn't even realize until they said it that they didn't know who she was. Right? The whole time I assumed he knew who she was, but not Sylvester. Right? Sylvester, I was like, maybe he did know who she was and was scared of her. But I don't know.
Yeah, I just thought he was going to get old boy to come back, like, okay, she's back, like, let's whatever. But yeah, that was definitely the first clue to let us know that shit was askew. Absolutely. When Maeve was just gonna give up and commit suicide instead of just try to break out of the park, I mean, what was up with that? Like, was it just because she felt like she truly had no one left after old boy just ran out on her like that, or why was she just getting ready to end it like that instead of just bounce out and just finally leave the park?
Maybe she just reconciled her situation. Like she just felt like, let me retry, do whatever. I don't know.
She wasn't going for like just killing herself. She had already done that and ended up back in the Mesa. Like she was going for the screw out of the nose, like full on decommission.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the wipe. I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, maybe she just realized, like, I don't want to keep doing this. I wake up in a strange place. I got to figure out what's going on. The people that I love don't even know who I am. That type of situation. Like, I don't want to know anymore. It's like the blue pill situation, right? You don't want to live in the outside, realize what's going on. So you just take the blue pill and live in your blissful life with a blissful ignorance, I guess.
Peter said she just wanted to go back to the technicians to see what was going on. But yeah, once she was at the technicians and old boy ran out on her, it's like she was just going to put the screw gun up the nose and unscrew and basically just decommission herself and be done. And she's like, don't even waste your bullets. She's like, if I wanted to hurt you, I could. But basically, I'm just going to end this right now. So don't worry about it. I was like, that kind of bummed me out. I was like, Maeve, giving up. No. But yeah, that was crazy. So at this point, Maeve just wants to join the others in Cyber Heaven. And with her being your favorite, are you starting to feel like a little for a girl? Are you starting to feel like a little for a girl at Maeve at this point? Like basically she's just done and game over. And so you basically, that's what I was just saying, you weren't catching that many feels about that, or you just didn't realize what was going on, or?
Yeah, I mean, she's my favorite for a reason. Like it's her ideals that make her my favorite. It's sure she cares about people, but like she did realize she couldn't tell people what to do, right? But she didn't even try to do that to Hector when she left the second time. She didn't try to control him at all. And that's what I like about Maeve. Like she would, like if it was her own interest, she would want to tell him like, hey, let's work this, because she didn't even say it in the right language, right? When she was talking to the German guy and she told him whatever, she said it in English. But didn't we learn last season she has to say it in their language? So
right, but she had already tried to do those German guys and realized she had no power over them. So she's like, well, if I don't have power, I don't have power.
Yeah, but she didn't even try to manipulate Hector like she could have.
But I'm saying after she had already seen that she couldn't, so why would she try?
You would try. Like if it was someone you cared about, like you would try. Like we watched them struggle over and over and over again in the whole first season, right? First and second season, they were struggling, messing up and fixing things. Her and Hector especially. So the fact that if she tried to get her power back or that she didn't, it's to me, it shows her as a character. Like it doesn't matter that she has this power to Maeve, like, because she's not going to use it. That goes against her ideals. It's like having a great superpower, but you can't use it because otherwise you are basically going against what you believe most. And like she didn't even make concessions. Like I'm sure she will once she gets back in her body or in the real world. She's probably going to make concessions. Like I have to control this person because it's in order to live this perfect world, or what I believe the perfect world is. You have to make certain concessions and do things you don't want to do. But for the most part, like she didn't do that when she could have last season, and that's why I like her. She's like, yeah, the world sucks, right? But this is the world I live in, and that's why she was content with like erasing her brain and shit.
I like Rizzo. Rizzo says maybe she thought she knew she was in another simulation. So maybe that was it. Like maybe that was just a quick and easy way out. Like, okay, I'm going to figure this out and figure who's running this. And she's like, that was just like a snap decision of what she ultimately ended up finding a way to do in the long run. So I like
that. Would be cool too.
I like that.
But I don't think she figured out that it was a simulation until the Sizemore shit.
Right. I mean, like I said, she was just in panic mode, snapping like, well, nothing else is working. Maybe if I do this, I'll figure out the next step, or it'll take me to where I need to go for the next step or the next part of this journey. But anyway, next we see Bernard, and we see Bernard can truly finally see all the doors as he makes his way to the Bernard room. And for all those people that still didn't realize it from last year, yes, indeed, our man Stubbs is a host. What'd you think about all that when it came through?
Well, I mean, we figured that, right, last season, with all the Ghost Nation stuff. And
I rewatched that, and we were wavering, but the two of us were definitely more like it's leaning more like he's host. We were never 100%, but we were definitely leaning like everything's kind of showing going host.
Yeah, but to be fair, we were kind of going with a lot of people who are hosts last season, so and we were kind of right on a lot of them. But yeah, I was pretty good way. I mean, it was pretty cool to find it like that. You're like, oh shit, 100% he's a host, right? And I don't know how he died, but yeah, I liked all that. I like that idea, right? Like even the fail safes that they had in place in Westworld were like, they were an illusion as well, right? Because the host couldn't shoot people, or like certain hosts couldn't shoot people, and the ones that could didn't have real guns. But then that that Stubbs does have a real gun that can kill people, and he's a host walking around. So even like these things, the safeguards that were supposed to be in place weren't really there, and I kind of enjoy that.
Right, but I mean, his basically his core objective, as he said last year, was to save the host. So once he saved the host, like once he stopped and got that one guy down, he could have killed that other guard. He had just let a bunch of other guards know and set the alarm. He could have killed him, but he didn't. He let him get up and run. He said, "Run." So
yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like it's a fake safeguard, right? Because Stubbs doesn't have the safeguard of bullets that can't kill people.
Oh,
he could kill people if he wanted to.
Right. Well, Stubbs had a whole different objective, and that was, I think that's why he gets to have that power. Like that's his superpower, is being able to actually kill real people or host or whatever he needs to do to protect the host, basically.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like it's all an illusion. Is Westworld was putting up a facade of what it was, and even to that point, right? You have hosts doing things they're not supposed to be able to because. Right, that's why the safeguards are in place. Like, if a host goes crazy and starts killing people, well, they have a gun that can't kill people. So, but Stubbs does. So you don't have that failsafe. And ironically, he's the one that didn't mess up, and he could have messed up at any point and killed everybody. But that's just a little side note, my little tangent.
Right. Well, because he said like he wasn't programmed that way to make the big decisions like you, Bernard. He was basically, they took all his core and took all his memory to be able to know what to do in the right situations to protect people and be a good security guard for all the hosts, I would think. So I'd say that's where all his basically memory went. That's why he didn't mess up in that way. That's why he was so mad. He's like, man, my job's done. I could be done. What the hell are you still doing? What are you doing back here, Bernard? Like he was hyped. He was actually legitimately mad about that. So, but Bernard was wondering why poor old Stubbs doesn't desire to live. Yeah, we're gonna get into that a little bit later too, because that's kind of messed up. Jake Cruz says she did with the other people. She might have her powers back now. She's back in her body. Doesn't look like she has too many powers because old boy was able to stop her cold and put a failsafe in her. So we don't know what's up. Why was he so much more powerful than her? That we're gonna have to definitely talk about that as well.
Do you think that's in the real world?
Well, he said, well, no, because he said, welcome to my world, the real world. So he considers his world the real world. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the human world.
Yep. I agree.
So when Bernard was fixing Stubbs, didn't it feel like someone or something was kind of watching him when they kept showing those viewpoints from the vents and stuff? Was that just fancy camera angles, or is there somebody spying and watching what's going on with all this? Because as we know, in Westworld, somebody's always watching.
With Stubbs and Bernard. Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, like with Stubbs and Bernard, when he was fixing Bernard, or when Bernard was fixing Stubbs in there, and they were showing those different viewpoints from like up in the vents and stuff. Are they trying to show us that somebody's watching, someone or something is watching, or was that just kind of fancy camera angles going on?
No, that's definitely someone watching, because they even do it at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
when
they did.
Start to pan behind that rock for no reason, almost like another second further, he would have showed somebody there, right? Standing behind that rock. And they did it too many times for it to not be someone watching. So
right. And I agree, but they just did it, I mean, just the right way to where, well, maybe it was just a fancy camera angle, but no, yeah, it has to be them telling us that somebody's watching.
That was the real, like, I caught it more at the end. I didn't even catch it all until like the second time I watched it. I didn't catch it all the different angles. It's the last one that was like, why would they start to pan behind that rock for no reason? I'm like, it looks like they're about to show somebody.
Like someone's creeping, someone's watching.
And then when I watched it again, I'm like, oh, damn, they did that a lot. They did it a few times where it was like showing a weird angle, like someone's spying on them. I agree.
Yep. So Stubbs asked why Bernard is back, and Bernard says, I think Dolores brought me back is to put a check on herself in case she goes too far. So basically, that's kind of what I was saying last week, and you didn't think that's what it was. Do you have any more opinions on what the reason Dolores actually brought Bernard back for?
I don't. I think that it is a check on herself. Like, maybe there needs to be that duality. Maybe she understands that. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's what they said this season or like what they said in this episode to where it's maybe she thought she would go too far, but maybe it's like she needs like resistance, right? She needs adversity. She can't just, everything can't be easy.
Or kind of like what I was saying before was like, I think maybe she, like, if she's going to be a host doing all these bad things, maybe the humans need to see a host on their side doing good things to realize that there are good and bad, and, not all hosts are bad, so you don't need to just kill all hosts. Like, there are good hosts out there.
That's a brilliant one. Like, you have a good example, and then that creates like a gateway for her to do more bad shit. Like, if half the hoses, let's pretend that they only know about two of them. They're like, one of them's good and one of them's bad. Like, you can't say, let's treat all the hosts badly because half of them are on your side, right? Then that gives her kind of like a little wiggle room, right? Because some people are going to be on her side because they're like, oh, I met this host and they were great.
Yeah.
So,
like Rizzo says, I think Bernard and Maeve are more humans than most of the humans in the show. The showmakers might want to make the point that they're considering how people live in the present. So could be. Oh yeah, no problem on the typos. I do those all the time, man. Autocorrect is a real thing. So why, when Maeve was just waking up, was she able to talk to Hector and to go and like before, when Maeve was first like coming to and becoming more human, I guess we'll say, or whatever, she was able to talk Hector into going with her. But now that he's so into this role, for some reason she couldn't make him do it. And I don't know. I think that was just one more thing that points like how obvious it was. Uh-oh. We lost you for a second.
Yeah, I was trying to mess with my camera. My bad.
Yeah, you're actually looking a lot better, so you're doing way better. But yeah, I just thought, I think that was just them one more way showing them that this is a simulation. It's like Maeve could always control Hector before. Why wouldn't she just get Hector to come with her now? And she just didn't even try. And again, I think that's just kind of showing us that this is a simulation, so it doesn't matter.
You should just, instead of saying like this is a simulation, you say, I think that's just showing us how right you were. And
it is all a simulation in a simulation. So this next scene is when I realized I watched way too much Project Runway with my girl. Because when Maeve and Simon were riding on those horses to the forge, I was like, how is Maeve straddling this horse in that tight-ass little pencil skirt? Like, I don't know. That just took me out of the scene for some reason. I was like, yeah, I've been watching way too much with my girl. Way too many fashion shows. But
yeah, I'm with you for a different reason. That same exact thing. She touched his belly and he was all like, ugh. I'm like, how the fuck's he going to ride a horse?
Yeah. Well, when he was getting away, I think that's because the computer simulation didn't want Maeve to realize that he was a fake. So he was just getting away from her, so she couldn't touch him and say that he's a fake. I think that's why that was like that. But yeah, though, if he's in that much pain, that would be ridiculous. But my whole thing, I mean, she's in this tight ass little fucking pencil skirt, like walking almost penguin, and then all of a sudden she's straddling a horse. Like, I was like, come on, dude. Costume much?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ridiculous that I even noticed that. But Westworld is usually so good about the minor details that, I don't know, that was a big one that I spotted. Kind of just took me out of the scene for a minute.
Yeah, but maybe that's part of the simulation. Like you can skip things. It's just
automatic. I mean, we already saw Dolores' dress change, so maybe it just went from like a dress to culottes real quick. Rise is saying he had the same. That's classic. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. So when we get down to the forge and Maeve finally figures out that none of this is real and sees that Lee Sizemore is a fake, I thought it was cool that like we finally got to see question the nature of his reality. Like he was really tweaking out. I thought that was pretty cool how they did all that.
Oh man, I was kind of bummed. It's like they watched our stream and it was like, hey, I was going on. Remember last year, I was going on this big thing about how Sizemore is falling in love with her. And she goes and shoots that down in this episode. And she's like, no, he did it. He didn't do it. He did it because it was the right thing, not because he cared about me. But I disagree because I still think that maybe she doesn't know it. But remember, he made Hector like to be him, like a better version of his self. And that guy loves Maeve. So I think Maeve doesn't know as much about reality as she thinks she does.
True.
Like about people.
She's a robot, so she can't really know about true love, like in a human aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be different, but
I mean, she's programmed to love her daughter, so she knows that kind of love. But as far as romantic love, there was never a man in the house in that scene. It was always just her and her daughter. And the men that came in that scene, she was scared to death and petrified of because they're basically trying to kill her. So, yeah, maybe she just doesn't even have that aspect. She can't compute.
I realized that anybody watching this right now would say they literally told you this in the show. You're being ridiculous that you still think he loved her. But I do. I think Sizemore loved Maeve. And see, not the show. Nobody's going to change my mind.
No, it could be. Absolutely. I mean, dude, why? I mean, obviously he loved her. He gave his life for her. And it wasn't just because it was the right thing to do. It's because he was a man and he loved her. And he knew that Hector would have a better chance of protecting her and getting her away than he ever would. So, I mean, you do that out of love, not because he just was a good man. Because as we know, he pretty much wasn't a good man. He was a dipshit. But, yeah, that's Sizemore. But back to Stubbs and Bernard down in the warehouse, and they find Maeve, but they see that they have a problem. Somebody has already taken her. Who do we think took her?
I think my answer to all these are going to be Hobo.
Hobo did it all, but Hobo has no arms, so he just directed another robot to rip her ball out and go stick it in this other special one for an even more advanced.
Or like it has someone with a chip in their head. He's controlling them, but who did it in the first place? It's got to be someone we know, right? Like it can't just be a new character. What do you think? I thought it was like the computer, like the simulation. Maybe the guy, whatever his name is, the main dude that thinks he's controlling everything. Maybe him. Yeah, because The reason I think Hobo is right because
what's good? One true David Adams just hit the chat. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Because I think Ford was a representation of Hobo before, and Ford thought that she would leave the island. And so that means that Hobo predicted that she would leave the island. And since she didn't, like, he had to know why, right? So then he takes her to put her in an even deeper simulation to do different programs to see if they could trigger the same response or if she changes.
Or is this just her learning and she graduated to the next level? And like I said, this is just robots on robots trying to simulate life now. And like Maeve just made it to the next level to be able to try to go out and just live life.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what it's going to end up being. And it's going to I just know it now. I just know it. So Maeve realizes it's not just Sizemore that's fake. It's everyone and everything. And if we're not here, then where the fuck are we? And I was like, oh, shit, it's on now. Like, Maeve is no longer ready to kill herself. She's ready to do some damage. I was like, were you getting hyped at that scene?
Oh, man, as soon as she was like that, I was like, yes. I'm like, I can't wait to go in and talk shit to DJ. Be like, who's the man? But, and I like, they explained her rationale the same way I did last week. Like, it can only simulate so much. It can't do it perfectly. That was my rationale for it. And that I like the whole thing. I was like, yes. But that's probably just because I was right. And I don't know. I was pretty excited about it, honestly. As it was going, I'm like, oh, shit, it can't be in both places at once. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, come on.
All right, as long as we're in shit talking mode, I'd just like to point out that while they were looking through Lee's office, Lee says, "Can you be more discreet? You're going to get us both killed." And Maeve says, "You can't kill what's already dead," which bodes a lot better for my argument than yours. The hosts are not alive. Boom.
No.
From your girl's mouth herself.
But she already knows they're in a simulation. At that point, she knows it's a simulation, right? So she's not worried about anything.
She knows that the hosts are not alive, that they're dead, and they're not real.
No, she's saying them two are not alive. They are already dead because they're in the simulation. You can't kill her because she's dead. She doesn't have her body. She's in the simulation.
Oh, man, that's so classic. I like how they showed Bernard turning the watch bots around so he and Stubbs could walk through undetected. You think he's going to find a way to elevate himself to the level of controlling machines without a pad like Maeve and Dolores can do at some point?
I think that whole thing's in place to, like, he's going to fix Maeve and let her do that again. If she doesn't have that ability when she comes back into her own body, maybe he gives that back to her. Right. Because, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the fact that they showed, Stubbs even said something about it, like, you're not going to be able to use that pad to turn humans around, because they were kind of showing, like, every time they walk by those certain things, he just hit a couple buttons and they turn and walk right by him or not see him. Or basically, I thought they were kind of showing, like, here's Bernard walking through with kind of the same power that Dolores and Maeve have. It's just he has to use the machine. And I'm wondering at some point, will he have the power to not have to use the machine just to be able to do it?
Yeah, he could, but that creates a whole situation, and we don't know the programming he already has, right? How mad were you when that happened? Like, when that all gets interrupted? Like, when Stubbs is like, we got to go, and he stopped the diagnostic, how irritated were you?
I thought he was going on too long as it was. It's like, it's go time, man. You're going to have the whole thing down here in a second. It's like, you got to go.
Who cares? I was like, let's find out what's going on. Of course, they're not going to do it, but I was like, damn it. I was like, what was all this for? This whole thing was for nothing. I'm like, I want to know. But
Nick Cruz is on my side. They're not alive. They're just things. Absolutely. They're bots. They are not alive. They're not alive. They have great processors, but they are not living things.
Can they create other living AI? As long once they can create other AI, they meet like a certain number of criteria to be a living thing, because you have to be able to procreate, like replicate yourself in some way or another. And since they are AI, if they can create newer AI that can grow and learn, well, I think that's the final criteria of them being
alive. The robots in Detroit that are making smart cars are basically living creatures because they're making smart cars.
They have to meet other standards.
Oh, now there's other standards. All right.
Well, there's a certain criteria for something to be alive.
Okay.
There's like an official scientific criteria.
Gotcha.
I'll look it up.
Meg said the simulation is flawed and therefore built by humans. What is the square root of -1? I love that line. Learn your fucking history, Benny. That was so great. That was pretty sweet how Maeve basically overloaded it. Like later they even showed like all the technicians basically getting in on that conversation. Like, what is the square root of -1? Like, I thought that was pretty clean how Maeve was finding a way to blow up the system.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. Like, that's a good thing. You just overload its processes, make it freeze up.
Well, she's just trying to find her way out of another gilded cage. But like we were talking about earlier, we loved. So were you? I mean, were you just kind of blasé about the whole Dragon sighting, or was it? Were you pretty stoked about that?
I thought it was funny. Like, I like the whole setup to it too. It was like the dudes were about to get laid off, and he's like, "I'm stealing this fucking dragon," and then the other guy's like, "How are you gonna get it down there?" In pieces.
So awesome. He's like in pieces. And did you hear like right when they were walking into the when Stubbs and Bernard were walking into his office, you heard like the actual like the saw turn on, like, and he was walking over towards it. Like he was literally about to start cutting it into pieces right then and there. I thought that was hilarious. That was great. Yeah, and I thought it was kind of like a nod, like they were going to cut it into pieces, kind of like what they did to Grimm's story. Just ridiculous. You crushed it, you hatchet man. So Bernard logs in to search for Maeve, but can't find her for the second time. Stubbs asks, "Why did Dolores bring you back?" And the answer is obviously going to be a major plot point, I think. But why do you think that is? Why does he keep asking, "Why did Dolores bring you back?" Like, what do you have a final answer on why they're back, or we're still going to figure that out? Why Dolores brought Bernard back?
Yeah, I think that maybe, like I said, that she needs a counterpart. She recognizes that, but maybe it has something to do with Maeve. Like Bernard can get Maeve. She doesn't really need Bernard, but she does need Maeve, and Bernard can convince Maeve like she could not. Or maybe because I don't know, it has something to do with the simulation for sure, I think.
Or it could have just been choice to try to show that she's better than the humans. I mean, basically, she's like even last season, she's like, "I'd thank you for bringing me back, but you wouldn't have had to if you didn't kill me." And I mean, basically, like that's what she did. She brought back Bernard, and like basically, here we're even. And it's like, if I didn't bring you back, and she made a mention about it. She's like, if I was human, like I wouldn't have brought you back. That's something they would do. They wouldn't have brought you back because it would have been too hard on them and it would have inconvenienced them. She's like, "I'm not human. I'm better than that. I'm a robot. So I brought you back." He's like, "I know you're not. I know you're still going to battle against me, but I still did the right thing and brought you back." Kind of saying that, basically she's better than humans. I think it was kind of like that.
The fact that they haven't let us see like what background programming and it's running in Bernard shows that she put something in there. She has a malicious motive with him, or else she would just let him run with his programming normal, right? But the fact that they're holding off and showing us
you are hyped about them not showing you.
Dude, I was so mad. Like you should have seen Sunday. I was like livid. I'm like, fucking why? Why, Stubbs? Like, this is very important, you dum-dum. This is very important that he figures out if our whole thing is to stop Dolores. It is very important that he sees what she did to him when he was not alive. Like, what she did is we got to stop now. No, nothing that's going to happen in Westworld right now is more important than Bernard doing a diagnostic on himself. The whole world depends on it, Stubbs, you idiot. But
well, it also kind of looks like maybe he froze right there.
I didn't catch that. He froze.
Kind of looked like he froze right there. And remember, Stubbs had to go back and click that thing to kind of snap him too, because it looked like he froze. So maybe Dolores put in a stunt and it didn't go any farther. Maybe Dolores put in a block that he can't see or get through.
Yeah, but that's why he needed to do it there, so he could, because he can't get through it himself. That's why the whole question of, would you lie to me? And the thing's like, no. But yeah, of course I would lie to him. But he needs to diagnose it. So that, that whole thing, that we know that there's some malicious.
He says, nope, he's seen T2 and she is up to something. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to be a thing, but I almost think they were kind of showing us that she put a stint in it, and even though, I mean, maybe she had something from Westworld that was strong enough that even at Westworld he can't get through it. It's still not clean because, yeah, she put a big enough blocker or whatever, a big enough firewall in that he just can't get through, and he can't figure out what that is. It's all okay for master plan.
Before we move on. All living things are made of cells, which we know that they are made of flesh and blood. They talked about that in season 1. They must obtain and use energy. Clearly, they're using energy. Here's the only thing that you might take some interpretation. They grow. How now is that like mentally? Their experiences create
something's alive, like a tree and a plant. It has to grow. It grows.
So yeah, but they can like repair themselves. So that's a level of growth. So that's the discrepancy. They reproduce.
You just blew your whole wad right out.
Well, no, with that laser, they repair themselves, right? They can heal over time.
They're not growing. They don't get bigger.
That's growth. That's cell growth.
Any bigger?
No,
growth. You're trying to bring in some mental growth.
Growth can be abstract, like growing outward, like a tree limb growing is just like cells forming into a shape, right? So I'm saying they can grow.
They don't grow any extra cells. They get an exponential number of cells, and that's it. They don't grow any more cells.
No, they're made of flesh and blood. If they were made of silicon or something, that I would agree with you. But they're made of flesh and blood.
Okay, so here's the deal. Like if we cut ourselves, we scar over and our own body repairs itself because our cells grow. That does not happen in Westworld. They have to be taken back to the Mesa and have lasers get them going back. They don't create scars. Their skin does not grow back. So
we don't know that though.
We do know that. We've seen it.
No, but we also see the Man in Black use that on himself, and he didn't scar up from it. So that is a technology they use to maintain their story, right? If that person's all scarred up, like you're not, that breaks immersion, right? You can't go to the host and be like, oh yeah, that's where I stabbed her at last time. You can't do that. So you gotta, this is some technology that works on people and on hosts. So that's growth. That's cell growth. And then a living things can move or adapt to their environment, and homeostasis. So they have to like create maintain something internally. So I don't know. I think they're alive. You can think they're not. I think it's all semantics because they're sentient.
Right. That's so funny. In 3 years, neither one of us has budged one way or the other on that. That's so hilarious. Absolutely, they're dead, not alive. Yep, absolutely, they're living. Oh, that's so great. So, I already talked about like how'd you like Stubbs as the hatchet man when he just grabbed that freaking hatchet and went hammer on those guys. That was pretty. I
feel like that was good, but that was a terribly choreographed scene.
It was comic relief, is what it was.
I feel like they were moving so slow and stuff. I was like, oh, come on, you should have sped it up a little bit, made it look like he was really going ham on him.
So then we saw Maeve has no time for games and gets straight to enacting her plan in the program when she wants to break free of her gilded cage. Like Hector comes in and she just snaps right by him like, let's go. And I like the little details how they threw in, like when they were moving so slow. We talked about that in the simulation. But when Maeve fell into Lee's arms the same way Dolores felt into Caleb's? Like, did you think anything about that? Like, is that was showing that other thing's a simulation, what Dolores and Caleb were in? And is Lee going to end up helping Maeve basically the same way that Caleb helps Dolores as the season goes on?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, like they're gonna get to the point where Sizemore becomes Hector. He becomes the person he wants to be, right? Through actions, maybe maybe through a host, like he becomes that thing that he really wanted to be. But for the time being, like I said last week, I think that this is a simulation. Like if you change for certain criteria, but make it similar enough, if you can recreate actions in a specific way, right? If you can make Dolores go crazy in the real world the same way she did in Westworld because you set up a similar action, or maybe it's not Dolores, maybe Dolores is the catalyst of the situation and it's setting up Caleb to be the man in black, but in the real world, right? So it's the simulation trying to manipulate somebody that it knows it can't predict, right? And that was the big problem with the man in black. They thought they could predict his actions, but it never knew his true motives. Like in Westworld, they never actually knew that Dolores was the real problem with the man in black. Like he would go back, but it wasn't like they knew that he was being evil to her, like he resented her, but it was because he wanted to help her, right? Like he wanted to give her life and make her real. But his actions wouldn't reflect that unless you knew him deep down. So I think it's the simulation trying to do the same thing. It's like, hey, we can't predict this guy. We could never predict the man in black. Maybe we can manipulate this other person that we have no idea what they're doing in the same way. Like it's going to turn out
different black tendencies, so maybe we can turn him into him.
Yeah, like if we can get similar outcome. Like it probably realizes it's not going to get exactly right, but it can push him in the right direction.
I like that. That could be.
That's why you're seeing so many things like that.
So then we saw Bernard now has a plan and knows where to start. And first and foremost, he realizes he needs a bodyguard. Is he becoming more and more like Dolores? Like controlling machines, killing humans when it suits his needs, making his own personal bodyguard?
Maybe that shows that the simulation can't.
You pick the different.
It can't do too many things. It makes assumptions about what people's behavior would be. Right? It makes too many assumptions about what their behavior would be. Like, oh, this is a predictable action. This is what people do. People without power have people with power protect them, or without strength, have people with strength protect them. Or maybe it's like a TV perspective thing. Like you need someone. Since you can't read someone's mind, you need them to talk to somebody else. And maybe it's just a necessity out of like production.
So Bernard programmed Stubbs to be his bodyguard, and Stubbs ends up saying, like, if you wanted my help, you could have just asked for it. You think this is going to come into play later? Because to me, it seems like Stubbs is actually becoming more evolved. And when Bernard first sees him, he says, "Oh, you're one of them. I mean, one of us." And now he programs Stubbs to help him instead of just ask him. It's like, does Bernard think that he's better or above Stubbs, or like are the hosts already developing a social status, so to speak?
Yeah, maybe.
Mind blower.
Yeah, I think that the real problem is Stubbs thinks he would have done it, but he wouldn't have, right? Because if his whole directive is something else, then he can't go against that just because Bernard asked. He still has his primary directive.
That's true, because he said it's basically his core directive last year. I mean, he made it very distinct to say his thing was to protect all the hosts inside the park. Like he really stressed the inside the park. So yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I guess I like that, but it does kind of seem like Bernard's getting a little uppity. I mean, oh, you're one of them. Oh, I mean, one of us. It's like, what? It's like, where are we going with this? Like, what are they trying to portray with that action?
Well, it's kind of like I think they're setting up characters, right? That he's not that much different than Dolores. Dolores wants superiority, and she's willing to manipulate people for it. Bernard wants equality, but he's also willing to manipulate people for it. And then you have Maeve on the other hand. She's like, she wants the world to exist. She wants to, to be left alone. She just wants freedom, but she's also not willing to control people to do it. So I think it's setting up like kind of a belief system. I think someone else is going to come out. Like maybe that's the whole human's role, is like they are the equal to Dolores, but there needs to be someone that's like wants superiority, but doesn't want to manipulate people to do it. And maybe that's Caleb in the end. Maybe it's someone like Caleb wants more power, but is not willing to manipulate people to do it. So then it becomes a broad spectrum of ideals, also actions. And so you have to.
It wouldn't be Caleb because Caleb's already admitted he's an underachiever and he's not really about all that.
Yeah, but he's also like he won't do personals, right? So he is Maeve in that manner. Like he doesn't want to destroy people to get what he wants. That makes sense? Like he's not willing to manipulate people.
Right, he just wants to do what he needs to do to get by. Yeah, he's not hurting anybody. Why would you program someone only to protect the host inside the park unless there are hosts outside the park? It's a good question from Jake Cruz.
Well, he knew that people were going to be outside the park because he sent Maeve to be outside the park, right? So,
do you think Maeve's the only one, or do you think there are other Westworld hosts out in the real world?
Oh, for sure, there are other hosts, but it's like I was talking about last week. Maybe the simulation realized that it was dangerous to have hosts that look like people in the real world. Maybe it was unsettling to people, and that's why all the hosts out in the real world look machine-ish. But there's got to be at least one more, right? There's got to be at least one that's out in the real world that we don't know about, if not more. And if there's one more, who do you think it is? Someone we don't know about. Just throw one out there.
Maybe Sirach's actually a robot out in the real world who has a host body who's like, he seems to be upper level. I mean, anybody that can freeze Maeve in their tracks.
Yeah, but I think that is happening in a simulation.
Right, that particular thing did, but what if he has a real body out in the real world actually roaming around doing it?
I don't think he does. But I think he's a program. I think he is like maybe a personification of the programming, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. And there's a good chance I'm wrong because they set him up as a character. But I'm going to go with that person that lady that runs the criminal thing that we were talking about. It looks like she runs that criminal app.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Martell, yeah.
The one that threatened that dude?
I remember her name. Martell, yeah. She threatened Liam, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe she's a host. If I'm throwing one out there, I think she could be a host. Like she's a counterpart to the hobo system.
I like that.
Right.
That'd be sweet. So yeah, there could be a few of them out there.
That's if I have to choose one. Right now, I'm not sure, obviously. But if at the end of the season we find out, I'm gonna gloat about it. That's for sure.
Did you notice usually when we see the white with the black circle, it says divergence in a certain sector. But when Maeve wakes up, we just saw the white with the black circle of no riding. What did you think that was about?
I don't know. I think that's part of the programming, but like the thing. But I was looking at that too. I was like, damn, it's divergent. It's divergent from the course. So
but there's no divergent. Like this is what's supposed to happen. This was what was meant to happen. There's no divergence here.
Maybe not. Maybe that's the symbol. Like his whole thing, right, was about predicting everybody, and maybe he just likes it. If he's a real person, maybe he just likes that art, right? Like, and that's his thing. Like, it's leaking out the side. It's like a reverse eclipse. I don't know.
But I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, what does that mean? It's like a reverse eclipse.
What does that mean?
Yeah, like there's got to be some significance to it. Just like we talked about, like the creation of Adam and all that stuff. There's like symbolism, just like Hobo's name. All of that is symbolism.
Like the name of this episode was The Winter Line. So does it all tie in? I mean, maybe it all ties in. I didn't get that one yet either. So we saw when Maeve walks out. I mean, we saw when she wakes up that picture, maybe the only reason was when she opens her eyes, that picture was there. There was like artwork of that painting of the white with the black circle. So maybe it was just her opening her eyes and seeing the picture, and that's why I didn't say anything. Maybe there is actually, it's just because she's where she's finally supposed to be. But Maeve walks out, and we finally see Engarin Serac. He welcomes him to his world, what he calls the real world, and that's what we were talking about earlier. We already don't think that this is really the real world. It's just a simulation, right?
Right, because how easily he was able to control her. But what you said, like that was a good point. Like her finally getting where she's supposed to be. That's a quality point there. Yeah. Dang it. Now I said that. I forgot what I was going to say in the first place.
Do that all the time.
For shame.
He says it would have been misguided of him not to take every precaution. And is that his clever way of showing her like how the machine works and predicts every probable outcome? Or was that just basically him being smart enough to know that she might end up trying to kill him and taking an extra precaution?
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, I think it's got to be him being able to predict things, right? Because Dolores is the one that they think is unpredictable, not Maeve, correct?
No, they think Maeve is the one that's unpredictable, not Dolores. He said when he's talking about it, he's like, there's something we couldn't have predicted. There's something that we didn't atone for, basically, or work out for. And we're thinking that he's going to say Dolores, and he stops and he's like, it's you, Maeve. So it's Maeve, because basically Maeve was supposed to leave the park and she didn't. She changed her mind and went back, and that blew in his mind.
Remember, that was Ford's thing. So back to Ford being a part of Hobo, but whatever, that doesn't matter.
Well, Ford programmed her to leave. Ford programmed her to leave the park, and she did her own thing and broke her thing. So is that just saying that Ford and Serac are basically one and the same?
Yeah, they're both freaking people created by Hobo in their simulation.
That's my theory. But I think it's a butterfly effect, right? By Maeve not doing what she's supposed to, she thus spreads that to everybody else. One unpredictable person makes everything else unpredictable.
Of course.
And that's what's creating all the divergence, right?
But something had to make this thing, and something had to pay for this thing. And I mean, the chicken or the egg, something had to start this. So I think it would have to be humans. I think it really was Delos and his billionaire company that his son Logan went and saw the starts of this and was like, yeah, this is definitely the future. And I think that was all real. I think that happened in the real world, and I think it started like that, and then it just kind of progressed to what it is. But I think there is a real world. I just think that maybe this thing has gone on for so long that now it is just making robots and there are no real people.
That would be the philosophical question, right? Like there's a bunch of philosophy in the whole show, but is there a beginning? Like, does there have to be a beginning? What is before the beginning? Like, and what causes everything to exist? So your assumption is people created this thing, and mine is this thing created people who thus created more machines that, so they're self-creating in my perspective. That's my theory. So maybe we'll find out in the end who is right. Probably you. It's the most realistic, but philosophically, I like mine.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. It's definitely gonna be fun to figure out. So basically, Do you think Bernard knows about Sirach? You don't think so? He hasn't had any idea who that is, or that hasn't been revealed to him yet?
I don't think he has enough information. And maybe that's why Dolores wants the machine. Maybe Sirach, like, she needs to get to Sirach. Maeve finally made it to him in her own way. And now he's waiting for Dolores to do it. Because didn't they say in the one preview, it was like, I've been waiting for not just her to get there. I've been waiting for y'all or something. Maybe not.
No, that's the preview. Yeah, because they showed the preview for like 2 episodes. It wasn't just the next episode. Like they showed 2 episodes just to make it even more twisted and convoluted. You gotta love
like they do.
Absolutely. So, will Sirach be able to send Maeve to where her daughter is? Like, will he be able to be the one person that'll be able to make a bridge to the robot heaven, or was Dolores right and there is no getting back to that?
I think there's a way back, but doesn't it show you that like the simulation, whoever's running the simulation, whether Hobo or whatever, they don't know shit. Like they can't. He wouldn't even know if they could go back to there, right? Because they're trying to fish information out of Maeve, like she knows.
Right, exactly.
So it's trying to figure out, like, it needs more information. It can't predict the host like it can predict people, which almost shows like you guys were saying earlier that the hosts are more people than people, because now the people are trying to become more like hosts, but they created this AI thus that can read their brains and everybody becomes predictable. So the only unpredictable things are the machines, because probably there is some divergent from the AI Hobo and the host at Westworld. I don't know. But that goes against my theory. I'm just throwing everything at the wall.
Just spitballing.
Yeah, so that would go against my theory that Westworld is all a simulation anyway. So I don't know.
Well, speaking of what you might know, do you have any more guesses or any more probabilities on who is in Hale's body?
It does, like, based on the preview of next week, it does kind of look more like Teddy, but I don't think so. I don't think it's Teddy.
Well, I'm split on the whole Teddy thing because we saw Teddy go into Robot Heaven, and supposedly there's no way back from Robot Heaven, so Teddy's gone.
I think Dolores Dolores must have more information than anybody else. Like I said, they're trying to get information from Maeve. They don't know what's going on. So I don't know. I think Teddy is going to be back, but so there's got to be a way back.
Or basically, Dolores already said she remade Bernard from memory. She's like, I remade you from memory once, so I just remade you from memory again. So if she can make Bernard from memory, why wouldn't she be able to make Teddy from memory?
Yeah,
and be able to make him even smarter, more up to like her. Well, she was able to raise that up and down anyway. We got Jake Cruz saying, Sirach said, we are fighting a war we already lost and we didn't even know we were fighting it.
Yeah, I agree. If you're trying to predict everything, now you have this thing that is oh shit. Okay. God dang. Maybe where Sirach's at in the timeline, Dolores has already won. Like, she has control of the AI, and if Maeve is the only one that can't be predicted, that's why they need Maeve to go after Dolores, because it's all been resolved. Like, everything's happening in Dolores' manipulation of the timeline. She is running the simulation now, and Maeve has to go after her because where time is, Dolores already has complete control, and that's what we're going to find out at the end of the season. Is Dolores had control the whole time. She's been running simulations to see what happens, but Maeve is the only X factor, and that's why they need her.
It could be.
Because why else? Even if the thing's predictable, why? If it could predict everything, why would you need to bring Maeve into it? You could predict Dolores' actions. But Dolores already knows what's going to happen, right? With that motorcycle, she calls the motorcycle to come help her. Guy's about to shoot her in the back, and it runs him over. How does she know all that's going to get set up?
That perfect, yeah. Well,
she already has access to the simulation, I think.
Yeah, could be. Jay Cruz, yes, Teddy did shoot himself, but they also showed him that Dolores had uploaded him. Basically, she changed her mind, and I think that's what basically made her change her mind. That was going on split timelines. But Dolores was going to blow up Robot Heaven and not let them all go and basically destroy them all. But then once Teddy shot himself, that's one of the main things that made Dolores have a change of heart. So then Dolores uploaded Teddy into the Robot Heaven and then broke the bridge so nobody could ever get back. So yeah, Teddy actually, as far as we know, they showed Teddy in the field of Robot Heaven last season. But again, like we were just saying, she already redid Bernard on her own thoughts and memories. So why couldn't she just redo Teddy on thoughts and memories? So that all could be pretty much obsolete. But it still comes down to who the hell is in Charlotte Hale's body, and I still don't think it's Teddy. No way do I think that's Teddy. What I was really kind of thinking is, what if it's Charlotte Hale in Charlotte Hale's body? What a just mindfuck twist that would kind of be. Like, why would they show her in the body? Because I'm like, at this point, I thought it was Emily, but that might be kind of a stretch. But I think it's Emily. But if it's not Emily, I think it's either Charlotte Hale put in Charlotte Hale's own body, or an even sicker twist, what I think it might be, to really kind of fuck with Bernard and try to give Bernard to like live his life and leave her alone. What if this old girl, his old girlfriend from the thing that he ended up killing? What if she brought back that chick, Teresa or whatever her name was? What if she brought back Teresa and brought back and like remember she's like, I need you to be who I need you to be now. So, and Teresa's kind of tripping because she hasn't been a robot. So she's like, it all feels weird. But they bring back Teresa and try to get her to basically be in Hale's body to go after Bernard to get him to fall in love and go back with like her and her son. So basically, like he sees his ex-wife and his son. And he's like, this is what you always wanted, Bernard. Just go be happy and leave me alone. What if that turns out to be like that? That'd be pretty sick. Booyah!
What if that's like a sub-programming that she has into him? Like that's why they didn't diagnose it. Like we didn't get to see that whole system. Is they wanted to set up like a what door situation where he can't view things as they really are. So he, like you said, he would go back and see Charlotte, but actually see his wife, right? Like his wife and kid, and that's why it all looks that way. And that would be his sub-programming that he can't access. That would be, yeah. But then what's the point in bringing them back just to do that? There's got to be something more to it.
For Bernard, because like she said, if she would have killed him and just let him stay dead, that's what the humans would do. And she's not human. She doesn't make those kind of choices. She'll bring it back. It's like, you brought me back. I'll bring you back. I'll let you live your life. It's like, I know, we're not going to be friends. We're not going to be allies, but this is the right thing to do. So I'm going to do it, basically.
That's not the right thing to do. Like,
for her
purpose, she's killed plenty of people and things that did nothing to her. Why would she all of a sudden care about Bernard?
She said she's done killing. She's already killed so many people. She doesn't want to kill anybody else. And she wants.
She goes and kills more people in that episode.
She wants robots into the real world, though. All that was killing in Westworld. She wants the robots out into the real world. That's why she was going to kill them in Robot Heaven. She's like, no, don't upload yourself and be gone into this thing that's just another gilded cage. Come with me out into the real world. That's what she wants. So I don't know. We'll see, but yeah, I don't. She brought back Bernard, and I think for some reason, I think that is going to be part of her plan. I think that might be Teresa in Hale's body, and she's going to bring back a son. She's going to make him a little son, and basically try to have him go live his life as like a family. That's in part of her plan for some reason or another.
Could be.
I think we're going to see that next episode. I do believe.
Well, then I'll be like, good job.
Jake Cruz, do you think Dolores brought back her father? They were talking about that last week, about how maybe it was her father, Peter Abernathy, in Hale's body.
Yeah.
Do you think that she's going to end up bringing Peter Abernathy back?
Yeah, sure. Because she can't even get past that, right? Like that's her father to her. And it's part of her programming, whether she likes it or not. Like we can be aware of our programming. Like, True Detective
season 1, he talks about that. He's talking about your programming. And even though he's aware of his programming, he's like, I still get up every day and do it. And it's probably just my programming, right? So you can be aware that it's your program and still act that way. So she's definitely going to bring him back. If anybody that's lost somebody, if you could bring them back, they would. Except for
Teddy, you think she's bringing Teddy back 100% too?
Oh yeah, she cares about Teddy, even though he's just a William surrogate. Do what?
But she uploaded him into robot heaven.
Yeah, but like you said, if she can recreate people from her memory.
So she can recreate the bodies, but in order to make them work, she needs those spirit balls. And she's only got 5. So one got put in Bernard. One was her own that she switched up. So one's in her head, one's in Hale's head. So one was already in Hale's head, and she already had 5. So her and Bernard are 100%. Those are 2 of them. Who's going to be the other 3, do you think?
But they could be blank. They don't have to have somebody on them. If she could recreate them from her own memory, she can
only recreate the body, though. She can't recreate those memory balls, the spirit.
Why not?
Then why would she have ever even taken any out of the park?
Because she can't recreate the physical ball. She needs that cortex to be there.
Why would she take 5 of them?
I don't know. Maybe they are specific ones, but I'm saying that she would, if she, like you said, she created people from her memory.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If she can create people from her memory, just like creating the Man in Black or like anybody that wants to be a hybrid, it's just like a collection of memories, essentially, of observations of someone's interactions. And that's why they do the whole test where they give them certain questions to see how they answer it. Right.
Right, but those tests are coming from people that have had their brain scanned and actually have like what their actual being is. What Dolores was doing when she recreated Arnold, they already had the brain part. She was just doing she even said the facial tics, the speech, the way they talked and stuff like. It was just like the more physical aspects of it that she's recreating. It's not like making a ball.
Yeah, but we're talking about the fidelity test. That's what it's called. But that's in the creation of people. If they are all part of the same system, they probably can recreate someone, another host exactly, if you could access the archives. But I don't know. They're definitely going to open that gate back up. But I think that, what's it called, knows that. That's why they were trying to fish for Maeve possibly knowing how to do it. Like they want to get back there because there's probably something there that.
Oh, of course they want all those. Dude, that's thousands of hosts that they lost. They want all that info back. Absolutely, they're going to want that. But
yeah, but that's Westworld. It's not Westworld running the simulation. This is
real
hobo.
But they still have all those interactions of those people, and especially like if they wanted anything, it'd probably be Ancachetta. Because he was another one that was supposed to be basically like Dolores alive. Like he was supposed to be off his loop and on his own thing. So he's awoken too, and he jumped in through the thing. So, I mean, maybe it's him that they want because maybe he's so old. Maybe he has some old data or like he's the original and like they need him to do whatever else they need to do to go on, further with their plans.
Could be. I think that it's not necessarily about wanting the people. That maybe that's like a thing where you can send all the hosts. Like if you couldn't kill the hosts like completely, there's no way to do it, but you could send them into a reality where they are peacefully living on their own as little pre-programmed things and they could never jump back through. That's a convenient way for everybody to be happy. Like, so if you were this computer that wanted all superiority where you could predict every action, you would need to get hosts who are unpredictable, who are ironically supposed to be super predictable. If you could get them out of the equation, but also realizing that like they're your children, that would be a convenient way to do it, right? You don't want to kill them, but
you can't have them messing up your grand master plan where you manipulate everybody and make everything how you want it to be. I don't know. That doesn't really go very far, because what's the point of that, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, what's the point of any of it? It's all to think about, talk about, and see if we can predict it before everybody else gets there. So, what do you think's going to be the master plan of this next the third episode? What are we going to figure out? What's going to happen? Are we going to find out who's in Hale's body finally?
Yeah, probably. That's a good one. We'll figure out who's in Hale's body. We'll figure out maybe when in time some of the stuff is happening. I need to go back and look at every little cutscene, like every little splice of Divergence, and read all the texts and stuff about when that is, how far along. They might even tell us right in it where in the timeline like things are happening.
I think it's more just coordinates and like cities and locations. I don't think that time so much is on there.
Got you.
I think more like dates, but not like. So yeah, I mean, maybe they do have the dates on there, so you can tell, because I think that's one of the ways we can tell. Like, this is 3 months after all that shit went down at Westworld.
I'm wondering if, like, what if the one dude is just Dolores trying to get more out of Maeve? You know, the dude that brings him into.
What if that's just Dolores in another form?
Yeah, like that seems like she wouldn't trust Maeve either. But I don't know. If it's Dolores already manipulating the simulation. But I'm going to stick with the simulation has already been conquered, and they need Maeve because she's unpredictable.
And in your plot, where does the real, like, is there any real world, or where does the real world figure in all this? And who's in it, if anybody?
I think that some of it, like I said, I think it's simulation up to the point of where Jesse meets Dolores. Jesse being whatever his name is.
Caleb.
I always want to say Connor. I don't know why. But I think it's simulation up to that point, right? And I think it wants to simulate further. Man, give me one more episode. I'll do a complete season where I think everything is, because I think up to that point it's like a simulation, and then they're gonna see like that's simulating events that have definitely already happened and or are about to happen in that time frame. Like, let's say that it's at the point where Caleb is about to drop off that drug, and it's trying to decide like whether to let him walk away, like how to tell people to react to it, right? So that he meets Dolores at the perfect time, because they need him to meet Dolores to see if it can be manipulated. But man, you get me rambling because I just think about too much. I think one thing and then the next, and I'm like, oh, and I got to go back because I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Oh, like what we were talking about earlier is we never really watch anything. Like, we just wait until we see each other on this to talk about the show on Tuesdays. So we're talking about maybe popping up and doing another one on Thursdays or Fridays. And after we kind of go back and read what like the Twitterverse and, you know, what other people who are making videos and what other people think about all this. And basically see their opinions, kind of open up, you know, see if it gels with ours, and come back on like Thursday or Friday and kind of talk about like if we're right, if we're wrong, and what other people are thinking about the episode. So hopefully you guys will all be around for that. We'll get that going. So we'll try to be on twice a week and keep this thing going. And like I said, definitely figure it out before anybody else does. Anything else you want to say before we bounce out of here?
I want to know before I watch anybody else's stuff, did anybody else like pick up immediately that they were in a simulation? Like that was definitely happening this season?
Oh, right when a lot of people were saying that right when that guy said that at the party. We're just living in a simulation inside a simulation. And a lot of people are like, no, it can't be that. We can't be doing that again. But it seems like that's exactly what it is.
That's what I'm wondering, like, because immediately I was like, hey, this is simulations going on this season. got it. There's, and then the whole thing's about this thing can predict stuff. So you got to have simulations in there.
Or the fact that, like, the way it showed up, like, oh boy, Caleb waking up the exact same way Maeve and Dolores did every day, just like they did waking up in the simulation.
Yep. Telling you.
We're Peter Griffin's out there saying, I think William will be in the real world, but it could be in the past as well. Where do we think the Men in Black fits in all this? Was he always just a robot that was made and he was never even a real person? Or because we see the board out there and we see that somebody's got a robot proxy in it, and most people are thinking that's the Man in Black. So if this is, if it's all a simulation, it's a simulation. But if there is a real world, where is the Man in Black in it at this point, or is he just dead?
Maybe I think maybe the whole of Westworld, aside from maybe like the very first William timeline, was a simulation. But man, if we're saying the Man in Black was a real person in the first place, right? Then he kind of sets Dolores on this path of hating humans, but he was doing it for a noble reason, right? He wanted to give her life. What if like Caleb's the opposite? Like he's kind of an asshole, like where William wanted to protect her and everything. Like Caleb's motives are different, but maybe his story with her, she sees that it's like a loop, right? It's a similar thing happening, and she realizes that humans aren't like that terrible. Like she's going to recognize that her reality, she was living in a video game, and people don't necessarily behave in the real world they say they did in a video game. And that she's vilifying all people based on this small group of like super rich people who are basically playing a video game. And so having a similar story to Williams, Caleb and William, is going to show her like she didn't have a good perspective of what people are like.
Absolutely. What's up? We got my man JD the Dragon just hit the chat. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. And that was one of the points that I was talking about, like when I was doing, everything last week, and we didn't focus on enough. Like that was an absolutely amazing point that you were making up last week. Like Dolores's whole thing, like you're spot on with that. Dolores's whole view is totally 100% askewed because she's doing what people wouldn't do. Like people go to this park to act bad and live out fantasies. They wouldn't do any of that stuff in the real world. But Dolores's view of that is just humanity as a whole. That's just what humanity is. She has no idea what they're really like. So yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. Like Caleb, show her.
And that's proven. Like they show that in Westworld season 1 when remember that person tries to talk to William, and they're like, well, the Man in Black at that point. And he's like, you like saved, he says something like you saved my wife or some, like you saved her life.
Yeah, your technology saved my sister or whatever.
And he's like, fuck off. And we know he's like, he's into philanthropy and stuff. But in Westworld, he's like, fuck you. I'm doing my game here. Get out of my life.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think her view is askew, and she's going to see that in the real world. So her loop is going to go full circle. Like she's gonna realize, I'm just as bad as these people that I'm hating. Like these people aren't like that. They're
even worse, yeah, because I'm doing this on a misguided premise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 100%, absolutely, you're spot on with that, and that's a huge deal. So I think that's gonna play into a lot of what's going on with this season. It's because Dolores is sooner or later going to find out that her whole viewpoint on humans is skewed and messed up. And I think that's going to do it for us this week. Like I said, we're going to get back probably Thursday or Friday, whichever day we got open, and get back on. We'll get out there and see what everybody else is saying about this episode and come back on and talk about it again and see where we're at with it. So I think that's going to do it for us. You got anything else going on this week until we get into that, Andy?
I'm probably just going to be congratulating myself on how good I predicted things. So I'll spend at least a week doing that.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Yep, definitely got a couple right out of the gate, so definitely on the right track. So it has been a blast. I want to thank everybody that came through tonight and everybody that watches it later. And yep, if you have any questions, leave them down below and we will get it to them in the next episode. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and make sure you guys all have an absolutely safe and amazing rest of the week. We'll talk to you next time.